there, everyone. Welcome. It's October already. I'm so sorry I didn't get to connect with you as often as I'd hoped through September. I hope you are doing well. The seasons are definitely changing here in Ontario where we live. It's very autumn, so I've got a nice warm sweater on today. September ended up being quite a full month with teaching. So I had my most recent course on predicting with progressions was happening live, plus the group mentoring astrology as a business program has kicked off as well. So that definitely took up a lot of my time last month. As I sit down and look forward to October, I've got a little bit of a lull between teaching. My next online live course will be starting November 1st. It's called Professional Predictions. It's about how to combine transits and secondary progressions together. So if you're an intermediate or an advanced student, if you already know some traditional astrology, if you already know the techniques of transits and progressions, but you want to figure out how to pull it all together, that course is for you. And I'll put the info about that below. But as we're sitting here with October, I've got a little bit more time to connect with you all. So let me know how September was for you in the comments below. There is a very unusual confluence of astrological aspects happening around this second weekend in October that I want to talk a little bit about with you today. So we have three different things technically that are all happening really close together in time. So we have Mercury retrograde conjunct the sun, we have Mars conjunct the sun, and we have Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars. So they're the three different things that are happening. Now, Mercury retrograde conjunct the sun, that does happen a few times a year. So I'm not going to focus a lot on that other than to say this means we've reached the midway point of the current Mercury retrograde, which is great. The part of the Mercury retrograde that happens after Mercury is conjunct the sun is typically more about trying to untangle some things rather than getting into the messes or figuring out where the issues are. And that tends to be in the part of Mercury retrograde before it conjuncts the sun. So the two things that I want to say a little bit more about are the two things that are a little bit more unique. And that is the sun conjunct Mars and Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars. Now, the sun conjunct Mars happens every 2 years. And this is when the sun, Mars is moving forward, makes a conjunction to the sun, and gets his kind of new mission statement for the next 2-year cycle. So it was about 2 years ago in the latter part of 2019 that Mars was last conjunct the sun. And that happened in the sign of Virgo. And now, as this Sun-Mars conjunction is happening, it's happening in the sign of Libra. In fact, the Sun and Mars will be conjunct at 15 degrees of Libra on Friday, October 8th. So that conjunction is a little bit of, it's like a new moon for the planet Mars. It's a beginning or a fresh start for Mars things. And you might relate that to your own chart about the Mars topics. So the topics of the houses where you have the signs of Aries and Scorpio. Or you can get even more specific and think about what sign is this Sun-Mars conjunction happening in? It's happening in the sign of Libra. So think about a new 2-year kind of challenge cycle or action cycle about the topics of the Libra part of your birth chart. So the sun and Mars, there are some challenges in the short term because Mars is technically in a pretty difficult condition. He's combust the sun. He is in the sign of its detriment. So Mars is not operating at its best. He doesn't have the resources typically available to him. But he is going through this purification and rebirth process that happens every time a planet is conjunct the sun. And as a result of that, the planet, in the days following the conjunction, the planet is reborn. So in the days following October 8th, Mars eventually emerges from the shadows of the sun and starts to shine brightly in its own right with this renewed sense of mission, of enthusiasm, of motivation, and of this new sense of like, these are my action goals for the next 2 years. So we can use this Sun-Mars conjunction similar to the way that you might use a new moon to set intentions either about the topics of your Libra house that are longer than a month, so 2-year time frame. What do you want to achieve, do, make a decision on, or create progress around in terms of the topics of your Libra house? And how can you use this Sun-Mars conjunction to kind of guide you or get a sense of what that might be about? And think about that 2-year time frame. because it'll be another 2 years before Mars makes a conjunction with the sun. So that's part of it. You could also think about the topics of your Aries and Scorpio houses in your personal chart and think about how am I going to tackle those parts of my life over the next 2 years? Am I going to focus on collaboration and partnership because the Sun-Mars conjunction is happening in Libra? So there's a few things to think about there. Before I say anything about the Mercury retro conjunct Mars, I want to put the chart up on the screen just so you can have a little look at what I'm talking about in case it's not super fresh for you. So this is the chart for, it's about October 9th that we're looking at. So we're kind of between the Sun-Mars conjunction, we're into the Sun-Mercury conjunction, and Mercury and Mars are also in the mix there. What I want you to really focus on here is just how tightly connected the Sun, Mercury, and Mars are for a period of time this weekend, October 9th and October 10th. So really strongly activating that 15 and 16 degree marker in Libra. There's an observation we can make just by having just the virtue of having these three planets doing their thing in the same sign at the same time. That doesn't always happen. We don't always have a Mercury retrograde in Libra each year. We certainly don't have Mars in Libra every year because Mars is only in each sign every 2 years. We do have the Sun in Libra every year. And we would have Mercury in Libra every year, but they don't always align. So the fact that Mercury is not just in Libra, but retrograde, doing that while Mars is making its once in 2 years visit to Libra, while at the same time the Sun is there, it's a little bit of an unusual combination. One of the things I said to my membership community this month in our monthly videos, if you're not a member, I'll put the link below where you can get the details to sign up. But one of the things I mentioned to the members this month was the idea that when we have more unusual or exceptional astrological configurations, we're more likely to be dealing with unusual or exceptional experiences in our life. And unusual or exceptional is not necessarily positive or negative or good or bad. It's more out of the ordinary, infrequent, doesn't happen all the time, not part of the regular rhythm or routine of things. So we might think about this as a chance to do something out of the ordinary, to make a decision or advocate for ourselves or others in a way that's atypical. Maybe you're getting clear about the power of language and expression. Because this collection of planets is so centered around the planet Mercury, because it's happening in an air sign, there's so many things here about words and language and about how communication can connect and bring us closer, or how communication can divide and create tension. And the sort of short-term phrase that I'm using for this conjunction in my mind as I think about it is, particularly for the Mercury-Mars piece, is that words can hurt or words can heal. And so different words in different settings can be very healing: an apology, a heartfelt taking of responsibility, or even just an expression of empathy, or I hear what you're saying, I understand this was really difficult for you. That sort of positive regard, that attentive, active listening. Just by saying a couple of things can make a person feel really understood, feel like they're not being dismissed, and those things can lead to connection. But of course, in other circumstances, words can be very damaging. They could be sharp or lead to division. And these are the two kind of extreme possibilities at either end of the spectrum when we get into the Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars piece. So there is Mercury and Mars. That conjunction is happening Saturday night Eastern time in North America. It'll be Saturday afternoon if you're Pacific time. It's going to be midnight, very early in the morning if you're in Europe, London, or the UK, or Central Europe. If you're in Australia, that Mercury-Mars conjunction is going to be at its strongest on Sunday morning, the 10th of October. So you can see Mercury-Mars. Now, I wanted to talk about the different pairs of energies here because each of them says something different, but also to acknowledge, of course, that they're all happening very close together. So Mercury and Mars are meeting while they are both very close to the sun. So there is that hidden quality. There is this sense of things inside bursting out or coming forth. And that may be something inside you where you get an insight, a realization, a moment of clarity where you're like, oh, and maybe you speak about it. Maybe you speak about it inelegantly, or maybe you speak about it prematurely, but there may be that enthusiasm, that Mars piece of, oh my God, I just figured this thing out. It might be that something comes at you from somebody else, where something, bursts or becomes clear inside another person, and now they're putting it out into the world. This could be good, or it could be challenging depending on what it is and how the message is delivered. So if we think about Mercury as the messenger planet, the planet that feeds communication, that describes the tone of messages and the nature of how a message is delivered. Mercury conjunct Mars is a message is delivered loudly or quickly or directly or decisively. A message might come with speed or with a quality of agitation associated with it. I'm really thinking about, I wrote in a blog post about Mars in Libra and about agitation and being unsettled because of the dignity, or the debility, I should say, of Mars there in Libra, and how that really unsettles the mind. So Mercury retro conjunct Mars can be a little bit of a malefic mental indicator where there might be an excess of worry or stress or mental activity. Now, when we see problems like this indicated by Mars, we have what's called solvable problems or manageable problems, where the issues can be dealt with, you can figure out your way through, but it is a level of extra effort, activity, or agitation for a period of time while you navigate through that. So Mercury retro conjunct Mars, let's not forget the retrograde piece here. Mercury retrograde with Mars might be, I've been meaning to say for a while, or this letter was stuck in the post. I just read a beautiful book by Kate Morton called The Distant Hours. And the story starts off from the premise of this letter that was posted in 1941 in England, showing up to its receiver in 1991. It had got, lost for years in an attic, and then the post bag was finally found and the letters were delivered, arriving after a 50-year delay. Now, I don't think that's what's going on here with this Mercury retro with Mars, but there is something about a message delayed now showing up quickly or being pushed through because there has been a delay. So Mercury retro with Mars could also be going back over conversations from the recent past, thinking you'd sorted something out and needing to go back to it. Maybe you had most of a conversation, but there was one unresolved piece. I had this great conversation with my dad a few weeks ago where we were talking about wine and his cellar and all kinds of things. And I was asking him all these questions about how he's organizing it. And I got off the phone. I was like, I forgot to ask this one final question. So I had this lingering piece that I need to revisit that conversation with dad about. Now, that's not a destructive conversation. It was quite an interesting, pleasant conversation. So it's not to say that it has to be bad or difficult, but with Mercury retrograde with Mars, there might be some impatience or some urgency to get back and deal with those loose ends or those incomplete or missing pieces of information. This feels quite decisive. Even though I know Mars isn't in the greatest of technical conditions, there is still a feeling from both Mercury and the Sun of wanting to decide and do, wanting to make a choice, even if you don't have the perfect set of options, just decide with what's in front of you and create some momentum. So keeping things moving, I think, is really important here. So Mercury retrograde with Mars is going to stimulate and activate conversation and interaction. So I think you've got the gist of that. I can probably take the chart down now. And what we want to try and be thoughtful about is, are we getting stuck in the Mercury Mars where there's sort of an attacking or a debating or a negotiating quality where you're trying to win something? Are you getting competitive about communication with the Mars Mercury? Or can you let some of the Libra piece come in, which might speak about how can we discuss or negotiate? How can we navigate this difference, whether it's a difference of opinion, a difference of priority, a difference of available time or money or resources? How can we discuss our way through? How can we explore where maybe hurt has been done in the past and we might be looking to patch things up or repair in some way? So I think there is some space for this Mercury retro conjunct Mars aspect to be divisive in some settings, but also to highlight how we might need to have some uncomfortable or necessary conversations as we try to do the Libra thing of find some common ground or come to a place of agreement or understanding. So I'm really curious to hear from all of you. How is this showing up in your life? When I've been speaking with clients about this pile up of Sun, Mercury, and Mars, all in Libra, the topics of the Libra house in their birth chart are really front and center. For some people who are Libra rising or Libra ascendant charts, they've been really doing some stuff for themselves. They're thinking about taking care of their own health, both physically and their mental health and their mindset. They're thinking about how to put themselves first, which is not something that the Libra part of our chart tends to do well. So I think with Mars in Libra, just that longer cycle, which is running till the end of October, we're kind of up and down inside ourselves about how do I accommodate the needs of others, but how do I also make sure my own priorities, particularly about the themes of the Libra part of your chart. So it is very much that back and forward, weighing the scales of what is appropriate. And the answer is going to be a little different for each of us. So a very busy weekend this weekend with the Sun and Mercury meeting, the Sun and Mars meeting, and then Mercury retro and Mars coming together as well. I dare say there'll be some very busy periods over the next few days where you are doing lots of things all at once, where you're juggling more manageable stuff with Mars, but still a little unsettling or a higher level of activity and movement perhaps than normal. With Mars in the mix, or whenever we're dealing with a planet that is in some sort of debilitated condition, like in detriment or in fall, we know that we've got things that are out of their regular routine, that are not consistent, maybe not steady or reliable. So we're going to have to deal with a little bit of that last minute changes. We're going to have to be a little bit flexible. But of course, Mars is getting his new mission statement as he meets the Sun. And that's a great time to do some deeper reflection or longer intention setting about what do you want out of the next 2 years as the Sun meets Mars. Hopefully the Mercury Mars doesn't get you in terms of over activating your mind. If you know that you're prone to stress or worry or even symptoms of anxiety, I would really encourage you to make sure you have some of your best self-care remedies available this weekend. Whether that's walking in nature, taking a bath, a particular type of book or movie that you want to escape with, anything that you know that is going to help calm and center you as the weekend goes on. Maybe a better weekend to avoid stimulants, things like coffee and sugar, because there's sort of this astrological hyperactivity, if you like, this weekend. And for some of us, that's going to lead us to get a lot done in a short space of time. And for some of us, we're just going to be really busy without feeling like we've achieved anything. So where you can make a choice, hopefully you can channel this overstimulation into something constructive. Let me know how this is going for you. I'm really curious to hear how the topics of the Libra house are showing up for you at the moment. So where is that 15, 16 degrees Libra in your chart? What are the topics of that house? And how are you making decisions or dealing with some of those Mercury retro snafus in that part of your life? Let me know via the comments below. I'll be back with more at some point soon. So thank you all for watching. As always, if you need more from me in between my YouTube videos, feel free to pop over to my website, kellysastrology.com. There are some links below, both to some of the upcoming astrology classes that I have. I've also got one on using the North and South Node from a traditional astrology perspective, but you'll also have access to some of my blog posts as well. So the Mars in Libra blog post I'll link to in the show notes below. All right, team, enjoy the rest of your day and we'll talk again soon. Bye for now.